You want my advice? Sure. Go back to your wife. You obviously love her, and she has no chance of dating a man while she is married to you. Talk to her and find out what's going on in her head and why she's unhappy. Now will you buy me a drink? Hell no. You just tried to defend her and give me some bullshit excuses for my wife being a cheating whore. You can take your feminist crap and sit on a rusty fishing knife, shouted Tom eventually. The bartender sent the woman away from Tom to the other end of the bar. The bartender approached Tom again. I can't have you yelling at my customers again, you understand? I overheard your story and I'm sorry. The next beer is on me. Thanks. Tom nodded. He sat sipping his beer and contemplating how the hell everything had gone down. Tom was just gesturing for the bartender to bring him another beer when his wife's brother Billy walked into the lounge. "Oh, for crying out loud," said Tom as the bartender set the bottle down. "Is this guy going to give you any trouble?" he asked Tom. "I hope not. Keep your cell phone nearby just in case," replied Tom. The bartender turned to Billy as he walked toward Tom. "I'll put 3 cig guns in your chest if you start anything, you understand me?" the bartender said, pointing at Billy. "Jesus Christ, I just came here to talk to my brother-in-law. Calm the hell down," Bill replied, throwing his hands up in the air. "He's had enough of that for one day." "Can I at least get a beer, then?" asked Bill to the bartender, lowering his hands. "Depends on what you want to say." "It's none of your business, old man," said Bill, sitting down next to Tom. "What do you want, Bill?" asked Tom. "For my sister not to be a dumbass, but I think I'm asking too much right now." "I take it she told you the truth." "Yes. Karen and I were at Mom and Dad's when Kim came in and cried." At that moment, the bartender placed an Appletini's in front of Bill with a smile on his face. Tom started laughing. "What the fuck is that? I'm on his side, man." "Well, in that case," the bartender said, pulled a bottle of Coors from under the bar and placed it in front of him. "At least we know you're not a wuss now," he said, taking the Appletinis and walking away. "What the hell is this guy's problem?" asked Bill to Tom. "He heard me tell that woman what happened tonight," Tom replied, pointing to the woman he had yelled at. They both laughed when they saw her drinking an Appletini's. "Anyway, she came in all in tears. Her mom came over and hugged her while she cried. When she finally calmed down enough to speak so we could understand her, she told us that she was going on a date with another man, and you beat up her date and left without her wedding ring." "So far, so sure," interjected Tom. "Mom just stared at her in shock. Dad and I laughed, and Karen just told her she was an idiot. Kim started talking about how Laura said it would brighten up the relationship and that she deserved to have fun without her husband for one night, and then Karen got up and jumped on her, criticizing her that Laura was a piece of shit." "She wasn't wrong," said Tom, sipping from his glass. "No, she's definitely not wrong," replied Bill, and then continued, "that she probably just ruined the best thing that ever happened to her." They started to talk over each other in that high-pitched tone that women have when they start, so I couldn't understand a thing. The next moment, Kim threw a shoe at Karen. "Seriously, her shoe?" the bartender asked out of nowhere. "Jesus," said Bill, shaking with surprise. "You're like Mr. Roper from Three's Company." Tom leaned back a little. "You know, he does look a little like Norman Fell. Hey, Mr. Roper played a key role in the success of that show." All three laughed for a few seconds, and Bill continued. "Like I said, Kim threw a shoe at Karen. No sooner had Dad and I gotten up from our seats than she was on top of Kim and hit her." The bartender slapped the bar and laughed loudly. "You married a firecracker, son," he said. "Don't you have any other customers?" asked Bill. "Oh, yes," replied the bartender. "Trixie, get out," he said to the woman at the end of the bar. Tom and Bill watched as she pursed her lips and gathered her purse. "Okay, I was going to leave anyway," she replied and walked out the door. Tom and Bill looked at the bartender. "Okay, go ahead," he said to Bill. Tom and Bill chuckled and each sipped a glass of beer. Dad and I finally separated them after hearing the two of them yelling things like stupid whore and get off me. Mom was yelling at both of them when Kim ran into the bathroom. Karen had a scratch on her head from Kim's fingernails. "What about Kim?" asked Tom. "Pretty sure her nose is broken at the very least. There was a little puddle on the couch. Mom went to the hospital with her and Dad sent me to find you." "Wow, son. Looks like if you piss her off, I'm going to have to really serve you appletinis." A little more laughter filled the air as Bill replied, "I've learned to pick my battles with her, man." "How long ago did all this happen?" asked Tom. Bill looked at his watch. "About 2 hours ago." "Well, I guess I should at least go check on her," said Tom, and finished the rest of his beer. As he got up from his stool, Karen walked through the door of the bar and headed toward them, smiling. The bartender threw his hands up in the air. "Look who it is! Layla Ali is here!" Tom and Bill started laughing again. Karen froze in place. "Who's that?" she asked. "Would you like a beer, champ?" the bartender asked. "No thanks. I'm just here to pick up my husband and son-in-law." "Tell you what, young lady, next time you two kids have a date night, come on over and dinner's on the house." "Terrific," said Bill, slamming his hand on the bar. "That's so nice of you, thank you. What's your name?" asked Karen, extending her hand across the bar. "My name is Charles Stevens, but everyone calls me Charlie," he replied, shaking hers. "It's nice to meet you, Charlie. I will gladly accept your offer. After tonight, I could use a night out." "So, any news on my beautiful bloody wife?" asked Tom, looking at Karen. "Her nose is broken. Mom took her to the house to get some clothes and then to their house. They aren't happy with her at all," she replied to Tom. "I'm sure they're not," said Tom. "Can you drive?" asked Bill. "Yes, only 3 or 4 times." "Well, I'll follow you both and make sure you get home," said Karen to both Tom and Bill. 10 minutes later, Tom pulled up in front of his house. He was followed by Bill and Karen. When they entered the house, Tom and Bill sat down at the kitchen table. Karen disappeared into the hallway. "So, what are you going to do?" asked Bill, breaking the silence. "I don't know exactly. Probably file for divorce. She's been trying to get me to accept that she's cheating on me. She's damn lucky I didn't crack her shit too," replied Tom. "I know you're pissed, Tom, but if you hit my sister, we'll dance." "He has no reason to hit her. I'll gladly do it for him," said Karen, sitting down. "Where did you go?" asked Bill to his wife. "I went and checked the bedroom. She took a couple days' worth of clothes, so she'll still be back." "I'll start packing up the rest of her things tomorrow," said Tom, crossing his arms. "There's no reason to do that, Tom. Maybe she'll realize how—" was all she could say as they heard the front door open and close. Kim and Todd's father, Frank, walked in. He walked over and sat down at the kitchen table with everyone else. "Kim and Laura had a fight in the house the other day. She told Laura never to talk to her again." "Well, it's about time. We've all told her that Laura is a horrible person," said Tom. "Why the hell should she listen to marriage advice from a man who's been divorced twice?" said Billy. "Because women are stupid," replied Karen. "No arguments, especially now," replied Tom. "Look, we're all tired, and emotions are running high. Everyone needs to get some sleep and not do anything rash. We've already had blood spilled and bones broken. That's more than enough for one night," said Frank, rubbing his head. "Sounds like a plan. How about we meet tomorrow for lunch?" said Kim. "Look, I know you all want to brush this whole thing off and move on," replied Tom. "Absolutely not, Tom. I have to go home and find a way to not spank my daughter so hard that she gets dizzy like a Beetlejuice cartoon. I can sit here and say that she didn't actually cheat on you or sleep with someone else, but that doesn't mean a damn thing because she fully intended to do so." "This whole situation sucks," said Billy. "Thanks for coming over, but I need to be left alone. Frank, tell her not to call, text, or even send smoke signals." After everyone hugged Tom, he was finally alone. After taking a hot, cold shower, sleep didn't come. All sorts of thoughts were swirling around in his head. Had he failed in his role as husband? Had she already slept with this guy? Had this guy made more money? He finally fell asleep sometime after midnight. The doorbell woke Tom up around 8 o'clock. After throwing on a t-shirt and sweatpants, he hurried to the front door. Whoever it was rang the doorbell incessantly. He swung the door open in annoyance and anger. Standing in front of him was a woman he didn't recognize. There was an angry expression on her face. "Are you the one who beat up my husband yesterday?" she asked. "That depends. Is your husband the disease-infested pile of monkey shit who tried to sleep with my wife?" replied Tom. "Yes, he is," she replied, rolling her eyes. "What do you want, ma'am?" "I just want to talk." "Lift up your shirt." "What?" "I'm not going to show you my breasts." "I'm checking to see if you have a gun on your belt," said Tom irritably. The woman lifted her shirt slightly and turned around in a circle. "That's right. No weapons. Can we talk inside?" Tom opened the door and stepped aside. As she walked past him, Tom finally noticed the features of her face. She was tall to his chin, so about 5'5" or 5'6", and probably weighed between 140 and 150 pounds. She had blonde hair but dyed. Tom noticed that the dark roots were beginning to show through. Tom directed the woman to the front room. She walked through and sat down in the middle of the couch. He asked if she wanted something to drink. The woman declined, and Tom walked over to her, turned the chair around to face her, and sat down. "How did you get my address?" asked Tom before the woman could speak. "My husband, well, soon-to-be ex-husband, gave it to me. Is your wife here?" "No. I sent her to stay with my parents for a while." "Why, do you want her to be treated the way I treated your husband?" "Yes, I do," she smiled. "Well, you're too late. My sister-in-law has already broken her nose." "That's a little disappointing," the woman grinned. "What's your name, ma'am?" "My name is Sarah. My husband's name is Brian." "Always that fucking Brian," muttered Tom. "I feel sorry for Brian. I don't know why I'm apologizing, but I feel like someone should do it." "Unless you sent him here to ruin my marriage, it's not your fault. You're a victim, too." "It doesn't hurt you to know you broke his nose and jaw." "Yeah, it helps," said Tom, smiling. Sarah began to clench her hands into fists. Tom could see she was nervous. "You came here wanting to talk, and now you don't know what to say, do you, Sarah?" "Yes and no," she replied. "Let's start with how you found out about me beating your husband." "The hospital called. I was his emergency contact. When I arrived, he was in the room. He didn't say anything when I asked him what happened. The fracture didn't require surgery or wires. He already had a mask on his face. The doctor asked me to leave the room so I could do some paperwork, and then he started questioning me about whether I knew how he'd been beaten." "I suppose the cops were already waiting?" asked Tom. "They had already left when I got there. Brian refused to talk to them, but they said they'd contact him today. I don't think he'll tell them about you, if that's what you're worried about." "Oh, please. If anything, I'll have more work to do if I get arrested." Sarah laughed. "I saw your work van in the driveway. How long have you been a plumber?" 20 years now. "And you, Sarah?" "I stay at home. Brian works as a tax consultant for a company in town and works part-time during income tax season." "I didn't need to know that, but okay," replied Tom. "Brian met your wife Kim when he was walking our dog a few months ago." "How do you know that?" "Brian told me when we got home from the hospital. Like I said, the fracture was small, so he didn't need any wires or anything." "Okay, good. Carry on, please." "They started opening up to each other and it just happened," said Sarah. Tom noticed that she wasn't looking at him and was still clenching her hands into fists. Tom decided to try his luck in the dark. "When did he first cheat on you, Sarah?" She raised her head and looked at Tom. Her lower lip quivered, and her eyes immediately began to water. "Last year," she replied, choking back tears. "I'm sorry to hear that. That's why we moved out of town. He cheated on me with a 19-year-old college girl in our house. The tears were falling fast. Her hands were shaking. Her voice trailed off and then disappeared as she began to talk more frankly about everything. Tom just listened. Sometimes that was the only and best thing to do. Sarah talked about them going to marriage counseling and leaving to get a fresh start, hoping that it would help mend the relationship, bring back some semblance of what it had been before Brian had become so successful. It seemed to Tom that as soon as Brian started winning awards and being recognized around town, his head started spinning. Because of that, he started getting away with all kinds of shit. As he sank into his thoughts for a while, Sarah's next words brought him out of it. I thought that if I came here and had sex with you, he'd get a taste of his own medicine. As soon as I saw you, I realized that wasn't going to happen, so I decided to just talk. Tom took a deep breath. Sex with each other may be nice and give us some comfort, but in the long run it won't help anything. We both have an advantage in the upcoming divorce. If we give in, their lawyers and the judge will find that both spouses are cheaters. My advice to you is to leave him. I don't know what the situation is with your child or children, but they shouldn't have to grow up in a home where lying and cheating are considered acceptable. A few more minutes passed, and Tom walked Sarah to the door. She gave him a hug and left. After watching her car turn the corner, he made his way to the kitchen and started breakfast. When the kids were in the house, they always made pancakes on Saturday, and Kim continued to do so when they left for college. It had been so long since Tom had made pancakes that he ended up making too many. Just as he was finishing his breakfast, he heard the front door open. Kim walked in. "You look like shit, Kim," said Tom to her. She walked over and sat down on the kitchen chair across from Tom. He could see the black bruises under her eyes and the dropped nose. A transparent mask covered almost her entire face. She lowered herself into the chair. "I'm much worse, Tom. I'm so sorry," she said, and burst into tears. Tom looked at Kim, who was sobbing with her head down. Her shoulders rose and fell with each sob and breath. He reached for a dish on the table, took 2 pancakes, placed them on his plate, and then set it in front of Kim. "Have something to eat, Kim, and I'm going to go wash my hands and change." Tom was gone for about 15 minutes. When he returned to the kitchen, there were 2 other people at the table. Bill and Frank were sitting at the table next to Kim. Tom could tell it had been a long night for both of them. Tom decided to nip it in the bud right away. "There will be no second chances," he said as he sat down across from them. Upon hearing this, Kim began to cry loudly. "I have to ask Tom, is there any way to get over this? She didn't have sex with him, did she?" asked Frank. "Not a chance. She had every intention of sleeping with the guy. Her only regret is that she couldn't get her way," replied Tom. "I told you he would say that. I love you, Kim, but frankly, I'm ashamed to be related to you." Kim put her head in her hands, leaning on the kitchen table, and cried. Her father rubbed his hands on her back. "Just don't close the door from anyone, that's all I ask." "Frank, she closed the door when she intended to sleep with another guy. I'm not the bad guy. The destruction of our family is 100% her fault. No one else's anymore." "At least something good came out of it," said Bill. "Oh, yeah. And what's that?" said Frank with a tinge of anger. "Karen and I confirmed that if either of us even thought about what Kim did, we would divorce immediately. Then she proceeded to entertain me. It was a great night." Tom smiled at Bill while Frank rolled his eyes and continued to comfort Kim. "I wish you and Karen all the best, Bill. I really do." "Don't be an outsider, Tom. Just because my sister screwed up doesn't mean we can't stay friends." Tom and Bill stood up and shook hands. Tom walked over and extended his hand to Frank. Frank put his arm around him. "I'm sorry about this, son. You're always welcome in our home. Don't be a stranger." Tom took the keys, walked to his work van, and drove away. Epilogue. A year later, Tom and Kim were officially divorced. Kim's lawyer was able to get a judge to order counseling, but after 3 sessions, the therapist discontinued it. The house they had called home all these years was sold, and it was split 50-50. Neither of them wanted to live in it anymore. The children were angry at their mother for destroying their family. Without thinking long, they were angry at Tom for his resistance to marriage counseling. After a few weeks, he forced them to see the situation from his point of view. They hated the fact that they would now have to split visits for the holidays: Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all run and jump. Kim had made a substantial down payment on a 2-bedroom apartment not far from her work and her parents' house. She and Brian tried to bond after everything, but both realized that the excitement of something new was fading fast. When Tom left the courtroom, Sarah was already there waiting for him. They had spent several months burning the sheets until she accepted a new job out of state. They both knew it wouldn't last. Tom bought a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom trailer and a piece of land on the outskirts of town. He built a deck in front of the patio with a fire pit and grill. While they were both dating, neither of them could find anything lasting. They didn't speak to each other until their first grandchild was born. Tom was already waiting, deep in thought, when Kim sat down next to him. He saw her, and for several minutes they sat in silence. "Kim, it's going to be a while yet. How about you go out and get us some coffee? Still 2 sugars and 1 creamer?" Kim smiled, and immediately tears came to her eyes. "Yes, Tom, thank you." Our close neighbors, Jean and Pete, invited us to a barbecue at their house. No one had to drive, it was only 4 houses away. We had socialized with them for many years, and the 2 couples, Jean and Pete, Jane and I, Jim, were married couples who had known each other for over 2 decades. We had family gatherings together. We were best friends. The glue that held us together was the relationship between Jean and Jane, which started back in high school and grew to the point where they were in the same course at the same university where they were roommates. Jean had hinted that they'd had sex together when they were much younger, but although I'd poked her for details time and again, she'd never been particularly frank, leaving me to wonder if they were attracted to each other or if they were spending time with 1 or more guys. She'd never told me about it. Jean and Pete had installed a swimming pool in their garden a few years ago, so they usually had guests over, although we had a 6-seater hot tub which we used in the cooler months when the pool was too cold. So, of course, over the years we all saw pretty much all of each other's bodies, and in later years, when we got a pool and a tub, we knew that all 4 of us stayed in good shape. We ate BBQ steaks and everything else with a couple bottles of good red wine, wore bathing suits, and all felt free and comfortable under the alcoholic high. Jean started the conversation by saying, "Is it just me, or is anyone else surprised that we've managed to stay away from each other all these years? We've done and experienced so much together as family and friends that I know I've felt the attraction from time to time." And she left that thought hanging in the air. I could see that Pete's mind was working overtime. It was no secret that he often cast admiring glances in Jane's direction as we relaxed in our swim trunks, and I knew from conversations over beers that each of us thought the other guy's wife was very sexy. Jane cut in. "Well, it's not entirely true that we kept our hands to ourselves. You and I had our moments before we got married, Jean. Did you ever tell Pete about it?" "Yes, without much detail, but yes, I told him that you and I fooled around a bit when we were younger." "Did you tell Jim, though?" "Well, no details, but I gave a few hints." "Hell, Jim, we could sell tickets to the rematch and make a fortune. I'd definitely pay to see it." Pete was ecstatic. I only smiled but didn't comment. Jean took a bite. "What do you think, Jean? It sounds like the guys would be interested in watching us. I know I'd love to rekindle old feelings just for a laugh, but you know I don't want to run away from home with you. I love you too much in terms of intimacy." She laughed. I continued to remain silent, but was perplexed as to where this nonsense was suddenly coming from. I got up and announced that I was going swimming. I was uncomfortable with where this was going. I did a few swims in their 10-meter pool as the others joined me maybe 5 to 10 minutes later, and of course I had no idea what else had been said in my absence. I soon guessed that both girls had shed their bikinis and started splashing each other, then hugged each other and, to my utter surprise, started kissing passionately in the pool, no more than 5 meters away from me. I continued to swim until Pete sent me off for a chat. "You look angry, Jim. Don't you like this show?" "Pete, I feel like I'm being manipulated today. This whole thing came out of nowhere. Now they're saying I'm wrong. But you're going to tell me that the girls want us to consider swinging together? Is that true or not?" "Jim, I told them 2 things. 1, that you would understand their game tonight, and 2, that you would never go for it. You're right. I should have told you that it's just a little fun between friends. We're so close that no one else will interfere, just between us. No one else has to know, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you're right. It's my job to unwind you. They both want it. I'll be happy, of course, but I knew from the beginning it wasn't for you. Am I right?" "Not just right, Pete, but 100% right. It's not an option for me, and I'm going to have a serious talk with Jane when we get home about whether she wants to stay married." Pete nodded understandingly, and I decided that it wasn't going to go any further. It wasn't worth ruining such a long friendship. Pete said okay, looked in the direction of the girls, and shook his head in denial. They dispersed pretty quickly, and we all left the pool. After one last cup of coffee to warm up, Jane and I walked home in silence. Once we were home, I asked, "So, how long have the 3 of you been planning this? And before you answer, I talked to Pete while you and Jean were eating each other, so I want to know the truth." Jean frowned. "Okay, you got us. Jean and I were talking a few weeks ago, and we both fondly remembered our dates before we all met and got married. Anyway, we got a bit wound up and agreed that both couples, at least us women, feel we've become a bit stale in the bedroom, so we had the idea that a little exchange just between the 4 of us could liven things up for all of us. Something new and a little exciting is how we see it. What do you think?" "I think you're all out of your minds, Jane. I'm not impressed with your antics with Jean. You could get a quick divorce just because of that." "Come on, Jim. Are you kidding me? Are you going to divorce me because I kissed Jean? Seriously, aren't I worth more to you than that?" "Jean, not for that, but if you step outside the boundaries of our marriage, we're done. Do you realize that?" "I understand. Take me, Jim. It was just supposed to be a little fun between friends. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're not interested in Jean, then fine. We'll leave it at that. But I've seen the way you've looked at her worth all these years when she's bent over. I've seen you look like you like her. Well, this was a chance to do just that. But no. You say you're not interested, but I don't believe you." "Okay, Jim. Purely hypothetically, if I said, 'Hey, Jim, it's your birthday today. How would you feel about shaking the shit out of my best friend Jean as a present?' Are you saying you'd turn that down?" "Jean, I don't have to think about it. When we got married, we made promises to each other. You know I'm not a religious person, but I keep my promises. Will you keep yours?" "Of course I will, Jim. Let's just forget the whole thing." And there seemed to be no further mention of sexual relations between the friends. Although it got very chilly in the plunger's bedroom, neither Jim nor Jane made the first sexual move toward each other, and 3 weeks later they were going through the longest period of drought they could remember. One evening, when Jane had retired early and Jim was alone watching an old movie, he quietly went upstairs and could have sworn he heard a slight mechanical whirring. 2 days later, he discovered the massager discreetly hidden under Jane's bed. He'd never seen it before, so either it was hidden or it was new. If new, it was probably a plan to lower his resolve while she took care of her libido. Ironically, 3 weeks after I found her toy, a supermarket grocery bill pissed me off. A big pack of batteries. Hell, we hardly had anything that could use them. The only things I can remember were remote controls for various devices, TVs and the like, that ran for a year or two on one set of batteries. So she was busy satisfying herself. And meanwhile, we hadn't made love for 6 whole weeks. The same 6 weeks after trying to open up our marriage to our best friends. Neither of us talked about it. We seemed to be entrenched for the long haul, and I didn't want to lose under any circumstances. If Jane had been willing to break up our marriage, I would have been sorry, but some things were non-negotiable, and for me that was fidelity. Meanwhile, our regular meetings with Pete and Jean seemed to have fallen off the usual rhythm of once or twice a week. We only met once, and it wasn't a happy occasion. The relationship was clearly strained. Then I was informed that Jean was going to their house on Friday night, and I was going to go with her. Of course, I said, why not? No reason, Jim. It's just that the relationship has become very strained over the last 6 weeks, and I wasn't sure if you would go. You hardly spoke when we were last there 3 weeks ago. I'm glad you want to go. After all, they are our best friends. Yes, Jane, I said quietly, feeling a little awkward after you made it clear that you'd rather sleep with them than me. You've been sleeping with them since I did. What makes you think I'd rather sleep with them? I love you, you idiot, but you only made me feel really awkward because everyone else decided we could use a relationship to brighten things up. And since then, you haven't made a single move to make love to me, and I bought a self-satisfaction toy to keep me on the walls. If you don't want me, I'm not going to be celibate forever, so yes, I'm biting. I bought a vibrator, and it's doing a pretty good job. Although I'd rather have you. You really annoy me with your childish behavior, Jim. I've never given you a reason to doubt me, but you make me feel like some kind of minx. Well, my faithful wife. At least you're faithful to your massager. I walked away, unprepared to be talked into agreeing to the crap she was selling. I had no doubt that she was still trying to soften me up and sway me toward what the other 3 wanted. But I didn't know if she was acting alone or with one or both of our best friends. That Friday, we went to Pete and Jean's without discussing or solving our problems. My mood was depressed again, and I hardly said anything, but soon Pete said, "Jim, come with me to the pool. I want to talk to you about something in private." I could see that the girls were looking at each other, but I didn't know if they were conveying a silent message or, like me, perplexed about what was happening. I wasn't at all sure if my oldest and best friend was going to sell me the same pile of crap and what the hell to expect. Thankfully, it was quickly resolved. "Jim, what the hell is going on? We hardly see you anymore. I miss my best friend. Those 2 are constantly texting and whispering in the background. Jane is here more often than ever, but almost always without you. Honestly, I'm starting to get pissed off with the way things are going. Last week I was gone one night for a golf club meeting, and when I came back it was like I caught them off guard, and I could swear they quickly adjusted their clothes when I walked in the house. I have no proof, but I think they're probably having as much fun as they did in college, and our bedroom got very quiet. I think Jean bought a fucking generator, too." I breathed a sigh of relief. At least it turned out that I wasn't alone in this, that I wasn't facing a gang of 3, but just 2 women who didn't seem to care who they had sex with, as long as it was within their power to do so. Interestingly, each of them replaced our virtues with their own, though they weren't as turned on by it as I was. "Any idea what we should do, Pete? I'm really starting to question my marriage. I never thought I'd say this, but things have turned to shit so quickly. We had another fight a couple nights ago, and she said she loved me, but all her actions say otherwise. How are things with you and Jean?" "Jim, Jean is not normal in her own right, but our relationship is nowhere near what you're describing. I think she feels the strain of what these 2 are trying to impose on us. I have to tell you, Jim, if you were okay with it, I wouldn't mind. I've never made any secret of the fact that I think Jane is a very sexy woman, and you know it. If you had been okay with it, I would have agreed, but you didn't, and that was the end of it as far as I'm concerned." So the night I had so dreaded turned into a night where men and women had nothing to say to each other, but at least Pete was still on my side. That evening when we got home, Jane started again. So your little spat continues. You were so rude. You didn't speak to Jean all evening. I was so ashamed of her and myself for having such an ignorant husband. She's been your friend for over 20 years. Gosh, you should be ashamed, and I'm just sick of it all. Well, at least, Jane, you seem to be having more fun than I am. I said goodbye as I left for the spare room again. Fuck you, came from behind me, and 10 minutes later I heard her moaning and screaming, figuring it was to my advantage. On the Monday after the last fight, I installed covert surveillance equipment in our house, in the bedroom, kitchen, and downstairs living room. It was activated by both motion and sound. I had no idea if anything would be detected, but my heart hardened toward Jane. I couldn't understand how things had gone downhill so quickly. I decided that my marriage was coming to an end, but I couldn't understand how it was happening. 2 months ago, we were happier than ever. I decided she needed to be brought back to reality. I went to a divorce lawyer. She was surprised that I was willing to end such a short period of stress in our marriage, and even asked if I was serious. I told her that, in my opinion, my wife had already been unfaithful, at least emotionally, and was almost certainly unfaithful with another woman. Add to that, she had clearly cut me off sexually in a blackmail attempt to open up our marriage, so hell yes, I was as serious as a cardiac arrest. I asked her if she was the right attorney for me if she didn't believe in my wishes. Her answer wasn't as convincing as I would have liked, so I decided to divorce her as well. I found a man who didn't need convincing. He prepared the divorce papers and asked me what I wanted to do: file them right away, meet with my wife again before filing, or just keep them ready. We had been living this farce for 3 months now, 3 months without intimacy, and although my surveillance revealed nothing physical, the audio tape picked up very regular conversations that were recorded by both people we were talking to, so I knew it was Jane and Jean. These conversations not only confirmed that they were waging a war of attrition, but also talked about how much they enjoyed their female dates, mentioned the belt, blatantly ignoring me, and added, "When things settle down, I'll keep the belt on and unbuckle him regularly. He'll soon realize who's in charge. I'll make his ass dangle in the wind to punish him," and laughed and giggled. I replied that I wanted to service her at work to maximize her embarrassment. He smiled and said, "Consider it done. I'll let you know when she's been serviced, and I suggest you turn off the phone to give her more annoyance." We agreed that she would be served the following Monday, and I carved out a day off to change a few things at home. I did even better. I blocked her number. To hell with her games and disrespect. I also installed 2 code locks, one for the guest bedroom, which was now mine. I would have taken the master bedroom. But there was so much junk in the closets that belonged to her, so it was easier to move my stuff in there, and of course there was plenty of room for it. The second was the dining room, the only separate room downstairs. I put a mount on the wall for the big TV, set up a table and chairs in the living room, moved my big leather chair into the new room, and ran cable down there. 2 could play at being awkward. I was now determined to be a complete misanthrope towards my wife and her bully friend Jean. I hadn't told Pete what I was doing yet, but I would tell him tonight after the shit hit the fan. Just after 2 p.m., I got confirmation from my lawyer that she had been served with the divorce petition due to irreconcilable differences. As soon as she received the statement, I blocked her number on my phone. 20 minutes later, I got a call from work. It was my secretary telling me to tell my wife to stop calling and to tell her that I had indeed taken the day off and was not working. 30 minutes later, my boss called and said, "Jim, what the hell is going on? Has your wife lost her mind? Jane keeps calling and insists on talking to you. I even talked to her and told her you took the day off. I'm starting to lose my temper, so talk to her and tell her to stop calling or she's risking your job." "Boss, she'll probably be calling all day. I just served her with divorce papers." "Oh, that explains it. Call her off, Jim. I'm serious." So I needed to get in touch with her. So I decided to send her an email. "I'm home. Took the day off to celebrate getting rid of you. Stop annoying people. If you want to talk to me, come home. But lately, You've been more inclined to vilify me to your informality than talk to me. So why bother? I'm done with you. An hour later, her arrival was marked by squealing tires and banging doors accompanied by shouts of, "You bastard!" I was safely locked in my private room, had my music on, and turned up the volume when I heard her screams. She tried to open the door and then exploded with rage, banging, screaming, and generally expressing her anger while I was enjoying everything. To hell with her. It's been 3 months since I fell in love with her unconditionally, but she's been acting like a real asshole, messing with my head and playing with my heart. Some may think I exaggerated the situation, but without respect, marriage means nothing. That's how I see it, and it always has. And my respect for her was at an all-time low. I vented her anger and then opened the door. She looked confused, not realizing what had put her in this state. She didn't know what I had done. She thought her conversations with Jean were not something I was involved in. She also didn't know that I knew about their sex. I didn't just suspect that she had sex with Jean. I knew it from her own mouth. So we'll see how things work out. Divorce? 23 years of marriage, a few months of fighting, and we just give up? What the hell did I do to deserve this, Jim? Okay, Jane, I'll tell you that you and Jean aren't as smart as you think you are. Guess what I know? Well, I know that in your imagination I'm her lover and plotting to break into our marriage. Is that it? And what do you want to prove by that? I have your own voice confirming it, Jane. I have tapes of your conversations. In them you confirm that you are lovers. You confirm that you are using a male specimen. You confirm that you plan to stab me to punish me for resisting your plan to open up our marriage. You confirm that cutting me off sexually is part of the plan to get me to agree to you sleeping with Jean and Pete. Jean, sign the divorce papers and you can sleep with whoever you want. I'm sick of your games. We had a lot of time, but it's over. Sign the fucking papers. Oh yes, I take it you've noticed the changes in the house. I've done my best to separate our lives, and I want you to respect that I've designated only 2 rooms as mine and mine alone. In the rest of the house, do what you want, but stay out of my rooms. When the divorce is finalized, we will sell the house and split the proceeds 50-50. Just say yes. Sign the papers and I'll make it as easy as possible, but in the meantime, you can sleep with Jean in your room, but not Pete. If you do, I'll make your life a living hell. I promise you that. Everyone you know and love will know what a lying cheater you really are. Don't push me. Jane was stunned. Damn, are you serious? I thought you were playing a trick on me to get back at me, but what? Do you really want a divorce? But Jim, I really love you. I don't want a divorce. I just wanted to get my way. Don't do this. I laughed in her face. You really love me? Gosh, I wonder how you'd feel about me if you hated me. You told Jean you'd sleep with me until my ass fluttered in the wind? Wow, that's a lot of love. Sign the papers, we're done. No, Jim, we're not getting a divorce. Things just got out of hand. I'm sorry, I really am. Please, let's deal with it and move on. Okay, I can see you need convincing. Read my Facebook page in 10 minutes. I went back to my lounge room, fired up my laptop, and logged into Facebook. I changed my status to separated divorcing and wrote, my wife and her best friend Jean have resumed their casual affair, so I'm divorcing her. 10 minutes later, she started banging on the door, which I locked again. Delete that, you bastard! How dare you tell everyone about our private affairs? Jim, you have to stop this, please. Sign the fucking papers and I'll remove it. Otherwise, it's going to stay. Jim, I can't believe it. Are you really serious about getting a divorce? I just can't come to my senses. I thought you loved me. You really have no idea what you've done, Jane. I loved you all these years, and then you did this. You don't care that you hurt me and ruined our marriage just so you could sleep with other people. You are so far into this crap that you don't realize that you betrayed me, both emotionally and physically, and conspired against me with our old friends to destroy our marriage. By the way, how was Pete involved in this? Pete was in favor until you pressed him on it. Then he refused. At least there was some truth in what she said. Okay, So Pete and I are okay, but I never want to see Jean again. And when the divorce is final, I don't want to see you either. Now sign the damn papers. I can't believe what's happened to the woman I loved. You look like her, but you're not her. We went back and forth in circles, her downplaying everything, trying to convince me that our marriage was worth saving. But she had become a woman I could never trust, that she would be in my corner, that she would put my interests ahead of her friends. When that trust fades, it's over. Jane was in denial, in complete denial, unable to accept that her foolish games had led us to divorce. But I quickly grew to despise her, especially after hearing her berate me in conversations with Jean. I pushed for the divorce. She tried to reason with me, but it was too late. It had been so long since we'd had sex that I couldn't remember, and the situation was such that I wouldn't ride her. As the divorce date approached, her lawyer tried to get counseling, but my lawyer replied that I would neither attend nor pay for it, but would take my chances with the judge. She came back saying she would pay for the counseling, but I again refused through my attorney. I upped the ante again by putting our house on the market. She became furious, but I told her she was only delaying the inevitable, as it would have to be sold in the divorce, as there was no way she could buy me out. Reluctantly, she signed the purchase agreement and a for sale sign appeared in front of the house. She also finally realized that the divorce was going to happen whether she wanted it or not, but said that since she wanted counseling, we would have to contest the divorce in court. I told her that I didn't mind doing all our dirty laundry in public if she contested the divorce, and that it was her money to spend on legal fees. Jane began to look like a very conflicted woman. She was losing weight that she didn't need at all. She looked gaunt. Wrinkles appeared where they hadn't before. She looked almost beaten down. Such a change from the bitch who thought she'd get her way if she kept being mean. I was really tired of her. I started to look at her and wonder why I was so in awe of my wife when I looked at her now. She was nothing special. I guess that's what happens when love passes. The years had not been so kind to her. After putting up the ad for the sale, Pete called and asked if we could meet for a beer and a chat. I arranged to meet Pete at the Rose and Crown, a bar where we often went with our wives on happy days. It had a good appetizer menu, and the burgers and beer were just right. As we ordered and settled into a comfortable booth, Pete began, "So, Jim, are you really divorcing her?" When I heard that, I laughed because I thought you were just getting back at her, but now both Jean and I are sorry. We're losing our best friends, at least as a couple, and we both feel like we played a big part in that. I'll be honest. I've stayed out of touch because I was afraid you would avoid me. Jean is scared to death of meeting you. Honestly, Jim, I said something that started it all. But then the girls picked it up and carried it further. They both seemed to really want it to happen. And like I said, when we started talking about it, I was all for it until you made it clear that you were strongly against it. But it all started because of my stupid remark anyway. And I'm sorry, my friend. What did you say, Pete? The girls lamented that after 20 years, we all knew what each of us was thinking and there wasn't much excitement in our lives. We were all happy and content in our marriages, but maybe a little stale in the bedroom. When that happened, you went to the store to buy more wine. Anyway, the genius said, maybe we should switch wives from time to revitalize the relationship. I was being half joking, half serious, not knowing what you'd think. And then they jumped on you, and gradually things turned to shit. Sorry, mate, silly. I didn't mean anything by it at the time. It's just the sort of weird shit they say sometimes when they've been drinking. Pete, I've got to tell you a couple of things. Did you know they were sleeping together? Yes, Jim. But that was a long time ago when... No, it's been going on since Jane and I started fighting. I set up surveillance. It was recorded on my laptop, both ends of the conversation, so there's no confusion that can arise if you only hear one half of what was said. I heard them talking and planning. They admitted that they like to have fun with each other. But that's not all. They slept with each other using a simulator. That and the lies she told are two big parts of why I'm divorcing her. Lies and blatant disrespect, I won't accept that. Marriage shouldn't be like that. We haven't had sex in over 6 months, and as soon as the divorce is finalized, I'm going to fill my boots. One of her co-workers has already asked if I want some sex on the side. I told her that as soon as our divorce is finalized, I'll be ready. But I'll stick to my vow even if she doesn't. She broke her vows? Who is she sleeping with? With your wife, Pete. Your damn wife. Oh, I thought you meant she's having sex elsewhere, Jim. Yeah, when your wife puts on a male imitator. How do you feel about that? You mean other than arousal? I'm sorry, Jim, but remember when we talked about people being willing to pay to see that? I'd love to, but I know you're not in the mood for that kind of talk. Honestly, I don't feel threatened, but I don't like them doing this behind my back, and neither should you. I'm going to have a serious talk with Jean, but then again, to be completely honest, Jean could invite me to watch them, and that would be a dream come true for me. I'm sorry if that offends you. No, under other circumstances, I wouldn't be offended either, and actually, part of me thinks I'm overreacting. Tell them that, and I'll kill you, by the way. But the way Jean ripped me off, the way I was disrespected emotionally and actually cheated on me, though, with Jean, well, I stopped caring about Jean. I want her out of my life. If you had told me that 6 months ago, I would have advised you to get real, and now that's what's real. Shit. I'm just having a really hard time accepting this, buddy. Are we still going to be friends, Jim? We are, Pete, if you can accept a one-on-one friendship. Frankly, after the divorce, I don't want to see either of our wives again. Jim, you're my best friend. I'll support that on whatever terms you can live with. If Jean doesn't like it, I'll have a problem with her. I love her, but I'm not going to let her decide who my friends are. Let's have another beer, and then I'm going home, where I'll have an interesting conversation with my cheating wife. You're right, Jim. What they're doing is cheating. Do you want me to call you tomorrow and tell you how it went? It could be interesting, buddy. Very interesting. When Pete got home, both women were there. Both knew he had met with Jim. Both hoped his words would make a difference. Well, Pete, they said together. So, ladies, would you like to tell me about cheating on me behind my back? Both blushing ladies spoke at the same time. Oh, You two silly bitches, Jean. Your marriage is over. You can get over it. Jean, we need to talk. Ever heard that expression? It never ends well, does it? Have you both lost your minds? My friend Jim will never want to be in the same room with you again, and I don't blame him. You two have ruined our friendship, and I'm warning you both. Don't try to come between me and Jim, or there will be big trouble. I will not lose my best friend because of your conspiracies and connivance. Okay, then tell me why the fuck are you two doing this behind my back? Jean replied. Pete, we thought it would turn you on. What, Jean? You think I'm stupid? I'm turned on by what goes on behind my back. Are you stupid? I'm mad as hell. I can't believe you're doing this when Jean's marriage is falling apart. You guys are bullying each other by sleeping with each other. What do you think Jim and I have to gain from this? That we're not enough for you, is that it? Jean, we need to get a divorce. Don't answer the hell now. I want you to think before you answer, and think very damn carefully. I need to make a decision too. Maybe Jim is right. Maybe our marriage is over. Jean looked very hurt. Jane looked just depressed. Maybe I should leave and give you two a chance to talk together about what you want. One broken marriage or two? Damn it, Jean, we thought we were being so clever. We thought we had them both by the ears, and now I'm getting a divorce and your husband is mad at us too. Later, Jean slid into bed next to Pete and said, Pete, you don't mean to say that our marriage is in danger, do you? Jean, I understand why Jim feels betrayed. I just don't understand how you two play with fire and don't seem to care. Jean, I love you, but you need to get your head out of your ass. What you and Jane are doing is not what married women are supposed to do, and it has nothing to do with you having sex together. It's all about how you disrespect your husbands. Didn't what's happening to our best friends make you think twice about playing with fire? Don't you really care anymore? I'm really wondering where we go from here. Everything that was an anchor in my life seems to be drifting. Sorry, Pete. We just got carried away. We thought everything was going the way we all wanted it to. Except Jim. We thought our plan would make him come to his senses. No offense to us, kid. Jane and I are just playing around. You know we did this years ago. It's not serious. I thought it would turn you on. But you're right. You should have known it was coming before you did it. I'm so sorry. What do you want me to do? Should I interrupt Jane now, or do you want to watch or participate? What do you say? Jean still looked very concerned, but she was making a huge effort to stop Pete's anger. If you insist on doing it or let her do it, I think we'll be in as much trouble as they are. Do you understand? Yes, Pete. I get it. But is it okay if I keep her company sometimes? You mean having sexual relations with Jean? Yeah, I guess so. Then hell no, all this shit stops. If you want to stay married to me, I don't have to ignore her, understand me. You need to think hard because our marriage is hanging by a thread right now. Jim had his day in court, and it went easier than expected. After Jim's attorney spoke about the collapse of the marriage and its causes, Jane's attorney asked for counseling. The judge, who turned out to be a convinced Christian, was quietly shaken by the story, frowned periodically as the narrative progressed, and at the end seemed to waver and bluntly asked Jim what he thought counseling would accomplish. Nothing, Your Honor. I feel nothing but disgust for my ex-wife. She is verbally abusive to me with the lover she cheats on me with, and sexually she cut me off for 6 months trying to extort me to do things her way and repeatedly lying. I have come to the conclusion that she has no respect for me. Your Honor, to me, marriage is based on love, but it is based on mutual respect, being considerate of the other person's wishes, and always agreeing on basic issues rather than imposing them. There is none of that in our marriage, and I don't see anything that would change that. Your Honor, I believe counseling would be a waste of time. Mrs. Plunger, I'm sorry, but I don't need to listen to you. I've rarely heard a more eloquent articulation of what a good marriage should be based on. I have made my decision. I will not make an appointment for counseling, and the divorce will go through. Mrs. Plunger, I would still advise you to seek counseling yourself. It may benefit you and help you understand why things are the way they are now. Outside the court, Pete waited for Jim to come out. Jean walked past him and he greeted her, but without warmth. It had been over 20 years and the friendship had broken down, never recovered. Jean was also a bit aloof. She had cut Jane off not emotionally but physically. She wanted to save her long marriage, not pursue her best friend in divorce court. Jane was now a single woman living in a small but satisfactory apartment. Money was tight, although the small alimony ordered by the judge allowed her to live well, but not extravagantly. The house was selling well, and the 50% she would receive when it was completed would be a nice rainy day savings after paying the commissions and legal fees associated with the divorce. Financially, everything would be fine, but emotionally, not so much. She had lost Jim, Jean had cut her off, Pete had shown no interest in her. Because of everything that had happened in the last 6 to 8 months, she suddenly looked older, and although she thought she would be hit on regularly when she lived alone, no one stood still. Only older married men looking for easy sex, and certainly no one was even remotely marriageable. On top of that, she had a complicated relationship with their children. She tried to explain it away by saying that they were just estranged, but Jim insisted that either she tell them the truth, or he would send them the tape that had destroyed her marriage so badly. Neither child was happy, and both sided strongly with Jim. Their friends, with the exception of Pete and Jean, were wary of her. No one trusts a cheating woman next to her husband, and husbands don't want a woman to be their cuckold. Life was getting very lonely. Counseling at least helped her understand her situation better, but it did nothing for her loneliness. And Jim? He was doing much better. He had already dated and slept with 2 of Jane's work colleagues, and both were happy about it. But neither of them were seeking a big romance yet. He was in no hurry to start something more permanent, but as he'd told Pete when he'd gotten divorced, he was going to fill his boots. Unlike Jane, he worked out at the gym and looked better than ever. When Jane saw him in court, she experienced intense remorse. Jim was able to afford a better apartment than the one Jane had agreed to and began to adjust to his new life. Sometimes he was sad about the situation. He liked being married, but it was the right decision, and he didn't rule out the possibility of trying again if he found a woman he could trust. Jim and Pete met at least twice a week, just as they had after the divorce, meeting in court and going to the Rose and Crown to celebrate Jim's freedom. True, Jim had canceled late last week when he'd had a very hot last-minute date with a woman who, in the opinion of anyone his age, was taller than they were. Such thoughts no longer crossed Jim's mind. He realized that a trim, decent-looking, financially secure man in his early 40s was still attractive to many ladies. But not to him, languishing in loneliness and regret. When Jim asked Pete about his own marriage, Pete smiled, tapped his finger on the bridge of his nose as if about to pass on a state secret, and said, "We're doing fine. Jean's on a short leash and she knows damn well it. She has Jane's example. She doesn't want to go there."